Hi, I'm Jason.
I'm Chelsea.
We're the Munsons.
And we weren't planning on having kids.
Much less adopt. So, when we became parents, we hit the books and hired the experts.
And this is what we learned.
These are our family hacks.
Let's talk about feeling curious
Versus feeling angry. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of the old way. I know it was kind of how I was treated when I was a kid. Was if something happened, I did something wrong, then I would be confronted with an angry adult, which is never a nice thing, even today. So switching over to this different way of method or tool of using curiosity instead of anger, it definitely does take practice because you're typically going to start out feeling angry. Mm-hmm. But you're going to shift it over to being curious. And there's a huge benefit with this, and with both kids and adults.
Yeah. The number one benefit, by far, in my personal opinion, is that you're opening a dialogue with whoever the conflict is with, but you are doing so in an emotionally safe way so that the individual will be willing to share with you the information that you seek to have an answer to.
You're also giving them a lot of respect by communicating this way, especially with kids. You probably communicating with adult with it this way is not that surprising. But communicating with your kids this way, our dogs are making noise. Oakley, quiet.
He wanted to add to the video.
Yes. Dealing with kids this way is a very respectful way of talking. It creates that emotional safety and it creates that open dialogue as well. As children, they kind of have to put up with you. But as they get older and becoming teenagers,
they will not want to.
They don't respond. That whole angry thing, you create this chasm in between you and them.
So that isn't why you would start this at a young age. You wouldn't wait. If you're already there, then okay, start it as soon as you can. But if your children are young, then start this tool from a very, very young age.
Never too late to start using a good tool. Mm-hmm. So, how this would work in the past. We got a couple examples here. Maybe you should share your first example of a situation that would happen that you could get angry.
So this happened in our house maybe 2 weeks ago where I went into the shower and discovered that my rather expensive hair conditioner was empty. And are you making faces like the children do? Okay. So my hair conditioner was empty, and when I used it last time, I knew how much was in there. So I knew that one of my children had been playing, and I had a pretty good idea which one it was. So that is the situation, and the old way of handling it, because I did feel angry and irritated, the old way would have been to holler at that child, "Hey, what did you do to my conditioner?" Or "Why did you do that to my conditioner? That's so rude of you to touch my conditioner." That kind of language where you're just being accusatory. And "Why would you do that?"
And then it probably transitions over into some type of punishment. Mm-hmm. Go stand in the corner, go into your room.
You've lost your screen time.
Yeah, it's just, any number of things that just, this negative thing happened. And so you have to make this kid feel bad.
Yeah. You've not been kind to me and what's important to me, so now you're going to pay for it.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the old dynamic. The new dynamic looks a little bit different. Mm-hmm. So, and this is where it takes some practice because you kind of have to gain your composure and not have that knee-jerk reaction.
Yes.
That every parent has it. We have it. Had it last night. My kid and I climbed up into the top shelf of the pantry.
They were playing Nerf guns.
And I'm like, you. Anyway, but when you don't have the knee-jerk reaction and you can have a moment to actually process it, then you can start out with this phrase of, "Xavier, would you please come here?
Oh, okay.
I am feeling curious about something."
Yeah.
So when a child hears that you're feeling curious, they're not going to be so defensive.
I'm not curious about you, Oakley.
Oakley, thank you. I hear you want to be a part of this.
Hello.
Say hello. There you go.
Nose.
But starting off with, "I feel curious." Now, the child is not going to be feeling threatened, or even your spouse or partner is not going to be threatened by this sentence. hey, I'm feeling curious about something.
Right.
Okay. So then what?
So that's what I did. So I did wait, as he mentioned. I made sure that I was in a place to where I didn't react. I responded. Okay. So I came out to the kitchen, and that is exactly what I said. I said, Xavier, I'm feeling curious about my bottle of conditioner. It's this one in the bathroom. I noticed that it's empty. Do you have any information for me on what happened to what was in there? And because I did it in that tone and with that language, he went like this. I was playing with it. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, okay, I hear you were playing with it. Were you feeling curious about it? To which he responded, yeah, I was using it like a lotion on my body.
Okay.
So there's my answer. I already knew it was him because he's more who does that kind of stuff. But he didn't try and lie. He didn't be like, I'm so sorry, what did I do? You know, he just said, yeah, this is what I did.
And for every person on the planet who has ever wondered what conditioner was, and you put it on your skin and you felt that it was soft, who hasn't done that?
Because they get shampoo, but I don't give the boys conditioner. So he's like, what is this bottle in here? Oakley's bringing us his ball.
Oakley, how come every time we start the film, you have to come and bother us? Okay. So, all right. So what happened next? So you coerced this child into, you manipulated this child into confessing.
Yeah.
So what happened next?
So what I did was use the tool that we've discussed in a previous video about my needs. So I said I'm feeling, what did I say I was feeling? Disappointed. So I'm feeling disappointed because that conditioner actually costs Mom a good amount of money out of our budget. And that's a term that we use a lot with our kids. They're very familiar with what our budget is. And so they're a little too young to understand financial security or economy or anything like that. And so what I did was talk about the needs of consideration that I have and not being wasteful, to which I made a request then and asked him if he would be willing to not use my stuff in the future, to which he said, sure. It was a very simple, the dog is right in the way here. It was a very simple exchange of words, and he did not feel threatened by me in any sense. This is Oakley.
And literally every time we go make a video, he does this. Okay, so
does that answer your question?
That totally answers.
What happened?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and so the end result is, either with being angry or being curious, you don't want your kid ruining the shampoo.
Right. But what's more important in those situations is honesty and truth. You want your kids to feel like they can come to you with things. You want your children to know that it's safe to come and tell mom and dad when something has happened.
Right, and in this instance, you don't want the kid doing the thing again, right? That's the idea, is you don't want them wasting shampoo or the conditioner. So by getting angry with them, you create this negative experience, and so now you've threatened them into never doing that again, or maybe they rebel and do it anyway, sort of thing. But they're definitely not going to tell you if you got angry with them the last time that they did it this way. But ultimately, we got the kid to agree to not do that again. Mm-hmm. And the discipline actually was having to have this discussion with mom.
Right.
Even though it was a positive discussion, it is still a level of discipline, because discipline's about teaching.
Training. It's about training. And I did have him repeat things back. I had him repeat back, Mom's feeling disappointed because her need for consideration was not met when I used the rest of her conditioner. And when you have to verbalize something that you've done that doesn't meet somebody else's need, even as a human, grown-ups here, if I was to say, babe, I hear that you feel disappointed or sad because I didn't show kindness or respect to you when I did X, Y, and Z, that's painful enough to have to say it and to admit it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing for children. So the discipline was administered just in a very loving, training way.
Yeah. So let's talk about a couple other instances.
Okay.
So we have, like most families, it's like, okay, you finish your dish and you need to put it in the dishwasher if the dishwasher has dirty dishes in it, or you need to wash the dish.
Yes.
So what very often happens is instead the dish ends up on the counter.
Right.
Right? With none of those things done. So the old way is probably to throw in the shame, blame, justification sort of conversation, yell at the child, call them into, and you ask them a dumb question like, did you leave this bowl here? Like you're going to set them up, to lie.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
That question. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. So did you leave this bowl here? Do you know that you're not supposed to leave it here? Okay. Well, next time you're just not having breakfast tomorrow, or just, it's like you throw out some sort of threat out there, or you get, show a level of anger that basically you're trying to scare them into complying. And it doesn't
force compliance.
It doesn't work all that well. It might work again on a temporary level. It might work. You might get some compliance. It won't be a consistent compliance, and you certainly have not improved the relationship that you had with your child by yelling, screaming, and threatening them about what's going to happen the next time that they do this with their dish.
We're focusing here on what's an internal motivation. We want to motivate them with these things. So
now shifting to the other side of this new tool of being curious, right? So you have to first calm yourself so you don't have that knee-jerk reaction.
Diffuse.
And then it might look like this. Brody, would you mind coming in here for a moment? I'm feeling curious as to why you chose to put your dish on the counter instead of in the dishwasher or washing it by hand. And he's going to give me a response, probably something like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot to, or I didn't, or I just wasn't thinking about it, or any number of things."
Because most likely he was connected with where he was going after that.
Right. Trying to just be fast, trying to just get it done and be fast. And so now you've called him in and you're redirecting, saying, so what need do we have here? A need for cleanliness. We have a need for completion. Okay. Did you meet the need for cleanliness and completion by leaving your bowl there? See, this is the discipline. They don't like having to have this conversation.
Right.
It's a pleasant conversation, but it's still taking them away from playing. And you might, I don't know, you can sometimes intentionally wait till they're playing with something and really,
pull them out of it.
And then pull them out of it then. And that's actually a bigger form of discipline. You're taking them away from the thing that they want to do. So say, okay, so if you could do this over again, how would you do it? Okay, well, I would put it in the sink or in the dishwasher. Thank you. Would you be willing to do that now? Okay, so ultimately, what do I want to have happen? I want my kid to put their dishes away, and I don't want them to leave it on the countertop. This one's takes a little bit more work, because they will still do that.
Right.
They will do it less. They will do it less. But from time to time, you'll still come in, and there'll be a dish there. But they will, over time, actually get better at it.
And this is true, because we have recently switched from letting them put it in the sink or the dishwasher to now washing by hand if the dishwasher has clean dishes in it. So we are in a transition as well. And they will continue to improve and follow that transition when you support them with a reminder like this conversation.
Threatening, a spanking, threatening, hey, you didn't put your dish away, so now you have to turn off your video game. Any of that sort of stuff, it ultimately doesn't work as far as getting you to what your end goal is. Number one is having a good relationship with your kid, and number two, having that dish put away. You want both of those things. If you threaten, punish, in more severe ways, you may get the dish to be put away.
Right.
But you will have a bad connection with your child over that, and there'll be a disconnect there that you don't want to have.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about a third instance of feeling curious, and this has to do with
my succulent.
Those are plants. For those of you who don't know what succulents are.
Yes. I came into the living room and discovered that my succulent on the coffee table had obviously been knocked over as there was dirt. the potting soil was on the ground and the plant was broken.
Mm-hmm.
And
how were you feeling in that
I
moment?
was feeling sad and angry. Angry because they just left it and didn't say anything. And sad because I kind of nursed this succulent back to health. Somebody gave it to me pretty dead. And I was very proud of this plant because, as he knows, I kill a lot of plants. So I was feeling really sad that my plant now looked in such horrible shape. And it's actually never recovered.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while. Yeah.
So
So the children were not in the living room. So I hollered down the hallway, boys, would you be willing to come in here? To which they did. And I used the language, I'm feeling curious about my plant. I can see that it's been knocked over. I can see that it's broken and that there's soil on the ground. Would you be willing to tell me what happened? To which I got the truth. We use the Bozu balls, the yoga balls, not yoga balls, but exercise balls. This is what we let them sit on for homeschool at the table here. And they're not to play with them. They're to stay at the table, but they'd been playing with it in the other room, and it had bounced on the table and broken the plant.
Right.
So,
and that's a little bit more of a severe thing in our house. You know, is when you break something that somebody cares about.
Right.
So
the great thing is that by using that language is I got the truth. I got what happened. And they both, since it was something they were both doing, they repeated back to me, Mom's feeling sad and Mom's feeling angry because we didn't meet the need for care for the plants and we didn't meet the need for obedience with the balls.
Right.
So in this instance, because the balls were something that we've talked about multiple times, there was a different consequence other than just the repeating back language. And the consequence was that we deflated the balls for a short period of time. But they didn't cry. They weren't really angry. They understood.
Right.
You know, the reasons behind that.
Giving a spanking. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't know, grounding them. Well, they're too young to be grounded. You know, putting them in the corner. You know, taking something away of theirs. Going and breaking something of theirs. Mm-hmm. You know, those are all things that, you know, people would do, or yelling at them or this. But ultimately, it doesn't, number one, it doesn't make the plant come back.
No.
You might feel better in the moment because you're expressing your feelings. But in the long run, that's not healthy for you to be yelling or being angry at them. You know, and again, you can create this disconnect between you and them over this incident. Mm-hmm.
So in this choice of doing the consequence that I did, it had a direct connection to the form of disobedience, what had happened.
It's a natural consequences. Mm-hmm. So, you played with this and it caused this problem. Okay, well then this thing is going to be taken away for a period of time, and that's going to be the consequence of you having done this. We've also done things actually with shampoo, with the conditioner, and with plants, and with some other things. We also have done a natural consequence of them having to go to the store and use their money, which we'll talk about in a different video, using their money to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that kind of stinks, you know, when they have their allowance or their commission and having to use that money, you know, or having to go do a chore to basically earn, you know, the money back, you know, so to speak. You know, it's like, you know, who wants to go clean up dog poop in the backyard? You know, nobody.
Yeah, we use that language about their need for choice in that instance if they had to reimburse or pay something back for what had been damaged or broken. Wouldn't you rather have chosen to use your money on something else? You know, which they always say yes. Yep. It's only happened a few times, but it has happened. It doesn't feel good when your need for choice on how to spend your money is taken away because you have damaged somebody else's property.
Or you're having to do some extra work, you know, in order to compensate.
Right, when you'd rather be in play.
Yeah, for that. So it's something that we've been able to transition away from spanking, because that's how I was raised.
Yep, that's how I was raised.
You know, we were raised on spankings. That's the tool that we grew up with as adults. That's the tool we know how to use. But we've actually been able to transition away from using spankings as discipline, or
Even
putting
timeouts.
some level of timeout, something like that. We've been able to transfer away from that and actually get the results that we want to have by just adjusting over to being curious, having this discussing what the needs are, picking a form of discipline that matches the situation, natural consequences, or having them make some level of compensation in some sort of way. But we have done things like take away video games and screen time and things like that. Some fun things that they like to do that they have lost as a result of, especially if the thing that they did had something to do with screen time. So we find a kid late at night was on their tablet playing a game at 1:00 in the morning. Well, then obviously natural consequence.
Lose your tablet.
Like that. So let's transition over to the other side of curiosity from the standpoint of a child. So, for instance, Xavier with the bottle of conditioner, he was being curious. He was exploring. He was he's discovering. And there's also an element of play that's in there. So when you look at it from that perspective, this kid's just he's curious and he wants to discover and he wants to explore and he wants to play. He's not really connected with the cost of this thing or how Chelsea's using it. He's just having a time with it.
And those are all needs that children have. Those are natural needs, and we do want them to foster those needs in a healthy way.
You can't discline that out of them.
No.
You can't.
It's part of their development.
Can't spank discovery out of a kid.
Right.
You can't.
Right.
You can direct it. But you can't remove it. So for an instance with me, with any dad that's out there that I've got a garage. Not every dad has a garage, but you have a spot. You have a place where you have tools or you have other things that that are yours. These are mine. Okay. And these are not to be touched.
Without permission.
Okay. So, but kids are curious about that. And they want to discover, and actually on some level, you do want them to discover how to use tools, and other things like that, so that they have, that knowledge in the future. But being able to say, okay, I know that you have curiosity about this saw that you're playing with. However, you playing with this tool doesn't meet my need for safety and also my need for consideration, because these are my tools, and also I have a need for order. These are off limits to you. Okay? So you have that discussion once, and then you come back out. We had this problem with garden tools. Ugh. They kept on taking out the garden tools.
Yeah. Because they really like to dig holes in the backyard.
Right.
Yes.
And the rule was, you cannot take out one of these tools without permission. You have to have permission first, because then we can regulate when they come back. Because as a guy, there's nothing worse than having a tool go missing, and then you can't be able to find it. So I go out looking for a shovel and I can't find it because it's all the way in the back corner, or maybe not even on our property. Yeah. It could be somewhere else. So having this discussion of...
And then it has to be returned.
Yeah, permission, and then it has to be returned. So if I go out there and I find that the kids are using those tools, the natural consequence is, guys, bring back the tools. You did not have permission to use them. And then the next time that they asked the next day, I said, you know what? I'm sorry, guys. Yesterday you took the tools without having asked permission. So you're not going to be able to use those tools for the next day. It becomes that natural consequence. I said, because we have these needs for consideration, for orderliness, and for safety. And if you're not going to meet those needs for me, then I'm not going to meet your needs for play.
Right.
Can you repeat that back to me? If I don't meet Dad's needs for consideration and orderliness, he's not going to meet our needs for play. Okay, thank you. Thank you for hearing me. Let's move on with this. Another day, you guys can ask me about that again. Okay, so another point of curiosity, something we had a few weeks ago. You want to share about that one?
Mom gets so many experiences because I'm home with the kids. So I came back from walking the dog around the block, and it smelled like something had been burning in the house. So I could have been like, I smell smoke. Who did what? I know it's in here. You know, that accusatory. Instead, I actually do have a very good nose. And I walked around the house and found where the smell came from. And I discovered in the boys' bathroom a paper towel that had been lit on fire and had then been wet. So obviously been put out by the sink and put in the garbage. But it wasn't just on the top of the garbage. Like, this kid had like put something else on top of it. Okay.
Tried to hide it.
Tried to hide it. So his natural need of curiosity and discovery with fire. So, as in previous conversations, I came back out here. They were both out here, and I said, I'm feeling curious because I discovered this in the bathroom. To which I didn't have to go any farther. Xavier just said, I did that. To which we had a conversation about our need for safety. That I can understand if he's feeling curious about fire and ways, because in the past we have let them, build fires camping or do other things to satisfy that need of curiosity, to light a candle, things like that. So just reiterating that it's okay in a safe way to meet that need for curiosity with a grown-up, but why we should never do that on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I think so I was out of town,
Yeah.
I didn't have to be here for that one.
It was fun.
Yeah. But I mean, that is a scary one. We met somebody who, at the age of our boys, burned 100% of his body and nearly died by playing with gasoline. He waited for his parents to leave and meant to pour a little bit of gasoline onto a candle and almost died. Anyway, so that's a little bit of a scary one, but still, taking these things away or just saying don't ever do that, or anything like that. You can't take away that curiosity. You can't discipline it out. You can't talk it out of them.
No.
However, I can say, hey, you guys want to play with fire? You want to try lighting something on fire? You just come and tell me, and we'll do it together, okay?
Yeah.
All right, and we'll play and we'll explore, and guess what? I'm really good at it too, so I probably know some things about how to do this that you haven't even thought of yet, and I'll show you some cool stuff. All right, but come to me, don't do it yourself.
Yeah.
And we get that agreement, with things around safety, things like that. We did the same thing with guns. We don't have guns inside of our house, but we just did a gun safety training with our kids. Because we want them to know how to be safe around guns, even though we don't have them. So, anyway, curiosity, using that as a tool versus anger. This does take time.
Yes.
You will. It doesn't matter how often you've practiced it. You will have knee-jerk reactions.
Yes.
The other day we have pet snakes. Xavier opened the drawer to one of the snakes. Snake pops his head out. Xavier, thinking that if he pushes the drawer closed, that the snake is going to go back in, and instead he just closed the drawer on the snake, and I flipped out.
Yeah. So we're human too. We recognize that there's times that we still have that reaction versus response. And I just kindly said, that's not normally how you would respond. Which he was like, you're right, it's not. So having a partner on board is a nice support system and reminder for these things. And you can see throughout this video, we have, with this tool, how we use the other tools of our language unit as well. So
that's right.
You use them together. It takes practice for them all.